This is Creative Banter. Creative genius Nick Carver joins me this week for a blunt discussion on society. We kicked the conversation off by discussing how terrifying lifestyle changes can be, which, I know, is a very common thread in recent months. Really though, I wanted to bring Nick on to discuss why he chose to release a 4-hour-long video, and then ask people to pay for it. Through this, we discussed the societal idea that entertainment should be free, along with the reality of running ads on YouTube. And then we get into the meat of the conversation: anxiety, depression, and mental well-being. This is a long one, so batten down the hatches, and let's dive right into it. You kind of do the suddenly we're podcasting without realizing it approach. Yeah.
Start talking for a bit, and then before we know it, we're recording.
Yeah, pretty much.
Works for me.
Yeah, so how have you been though?
I've been good, man. It's been a lot of work managing this whole extended play thing, but
Yeah.
it's going well. Just got off the phone with my video host,
Okay.
and have to get more bandwidth. I've been doing too well, so it's a good problem to have, but still a problem.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was watching it, that it liked to buffer here and there a little bit, and kind of figured that was a bandwidth kind of issue maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, but it was good. I enjoyed watching it. I watched it a lot quicker than what I thought that I would while I was cleaning and organizing, getting ready for my girlfriend to move in. So exciting
Well, thanks.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal. How's that going?
It's kind of started, but also not really. So she's teaching right now, and her last day is tomorrow, and then she goes down for this country music festival. And after she gets back from that, we leave for Acadia on Wednesday. And after that, she officially moves in. We get the ball really rolling. So
Nice, man. How long have you guys been together?
9 years, a little over.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
It's great, man. Yeah.
Yeah, since freshman year of high school. So it's been...
Yeah, so you're basically living together already. Won't be any surprises.
No. I figured this past weekend we put furniture together. We put together some bookshelves, and
Nice.
we didn't fight. So I'm like, that's a good step. That's good.
That's a good sign. Oh, that's cool, man. Good for you.
Yeah, so a lot of changes on my end, but
Yeah.
we'll see how everything goes.
Are you still in school?
I just graduated with my master's.
Congrats.
Thank you.
What was master's in?
English education for
Okay.
teaching high school. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. That's what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I've gone back and forth on what exactly I want to do with it, if anything. I mean, I've applied to a couple different positions, but haven't really heard anything back yet. So
Yeah.
figure that out. And worst case, there's a camera shop not too far for me to go work at and
Yeah.
see what happens. But
Plan B. I've always thought it'd be kind of fun to teach high school kids. I think it'd be tough
yeah.
in ways, but I don't know. That seems like that'd be a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, my big problem with the English curriculum right now is the fact that it's teaching a bunch of old books from stuffy old white guys. It's like, it's not a lot of like diversity in that kind of sense. And so it's...
Come out to California, I feel like we only really got given anything if it had some sort of diversity cred.
Yeah.
That's when I went to school. That was way back in 2002, 2003. So
Most of the stuff that I like grew up reading is the same stuff that they're teaching now. It's like going through Shakespeare. It's going through like 1984 and The Animal Farm, that kind of real old books, just the classics, really.
yeah, that's interesting.
Not too interested in that, but my student teaching placement was all about like true crime, and we looked at serial killers and that kind of deal, which was fascinating and very different.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's really cool.
that spoiled me for that experience of teaching English in that way. So
Yeah.
it's going to be tough going into a classroom if I get a job and having to teach what I learned when I was going through high school.
God, I hated Shakespeare.
My one teacher who kind of inspired me to become a teacher myself, or thought of that path, he is obsessed with Shakespeare, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. He absolutely loves everything Shakespeare. I'm like, dude, you need to get a life outside of...
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you kind of are expected to be into Shakespeare if you're into that
Yeah.
line of work, but I don't know. Every time we tried to learn Shakespeare, I just could not understand what the F was going on in the stories. Like, I'm too dumb for it or something. I just, the English and like the prose and everything, I'm like, dude, I need this like translated into modern English.
The problem with it though is the fact that it was never meant to be read anyway. It was meant to be like watched. It's a script.
Good point. It's a play. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're trying to read this, we're trying to decipher this. It's old language, like you said. And now we're trying to read something that we were supposed to be watching and enjoying. So it's taught in all the wrong ways, I think. But
that was probably a very difficult part of it to me. I saw what they were doing. It's like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'll probably know what my next move is by August after I get back from Colorado. So
nice.
Yeah, figure that out. And then the fun really begins of either lesson planning and navigating the politics of teaching or figuring out how else to make money. So yeah,
exciting times, man. It's an exciting time in a person's life.
Yeah, exciting, terrifying.
Hope you're able to enjoy it. Yeah, I know. Well, so that's the thing, is the terrifying part of it. It's hard to enjoy it when you're in it, but I don't know. It doesn't really get any less terrifying as you get older. It's just different terrifying stuff. But if you can get a lot of the, I don't know, younger guy terrifying stuff out of the way, there's just other stuff that pops up. But yeah, that's cool, man. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And so obviously, one of the main things that I wanted to talk with you about was your extended play that you put out recently.
Yeah.
And so I know that going back a couple months, you had posted a video about kind of being unsure how to proceed with your on-location videos, that you weren't getting, for at least some of them, you weren't getting out of it what you had hoped, and you weren't sure how you wanted to go about that. So what really caused you to go with the extended plays? Like, what made you come up with that idea and really go against the grain of everything?
The on-location videos that I do, I kind of have like, I guess kind of two categories of it. I have the going out to the desert camping kind of ones that are a little more multi-day expedition based. And then I have local ones where I'll just go out and kind of shoot a building here in Orange County or something like that. And the desert ones, the camping ones, those are always the most popular, but they're just way more freaking work than people realize. Like it's such an obscene amount of work. And I really like providing them to people, but to be honest, the return on investment when it just goes on YouTube is just, it's always right on that razor thin line of like, I'm never doing this again, because it's just so much effing work that I don't really want to do it when it's done. Like I get to the end of it and I'm like, I look back on how much work it was and I'm just like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But then I see the finished product and I'm like, yeah, let's do that again. That was cool. It's really worth it for the finished product. So I was trying to find a way where I'm like, all right, maybe I can make this more worth my while. So I can make these videos, which I'm proud of. And I like that people like them and everything, but make it a little more worth the effort. And it just kind of popped in my head one day. Well, what if I made a really long one? Like, 4 hours long, 3 hours long, something like that. And I just put it behind a paywall, nothing, make it affordable for people, not make it some, $200 thing, but just try and make it accessible, but also worth it for the effort that I put into it. And then so I kind of thought, well, I'll do these extended plays and I'll do a free version on YouTube. People will still get what they want over on YouTube. And I'm not going to abandon all those people that have supported me over the years on YouTube. I'll still give them a free version, but I'll just do a much, much longer version for any of the, I guess, quote unquote, diehard viewers.
Yeah.
And then, see how it goes. And it's been doing pretty well. I know some people were upset about it, which I expected. I get it. No one really likes being asked to pay for something that previously was free. But I guess what I hope people eventually realize from that is I'm not taking away something that would have been given to them for free. Mm-hmm. I'm creating additional on top of that wouldn't have been created if I wasn't able to make some more money off it. So it's truly extra stuff that wouldn't have existed if I wasn't able to monetize it in this way. As I mentioned on the YouTube video where I announced it, there's ways to monetize on YouTube that a lot of people do that I just don't really want to do. I don't want to have sponsored videos. I don't want to, be hawking the latest camera gimbal on my video so that people can still get these videos. I think anyone who wants me to take that route, of just kind of like, oh, just do sponsored videos and give it to us for free. And they're not really paying attention to my work. I mean, if you look at a lot of my photos, I mean, half of it is a commentary on the over consumerist nature of modern society. And I'm shooting these buildings with a shitload of advertisements in the windows. Like, I'm not shooting those just because I think they're pretty or something. Like, it's a bit of a commentary on how American society is, with just kind of branding everywhere, and there's products everywhere. And, that's why I like shooting bargain stores and Dollar Generals and stuff like that. I just think it's such a weird part of our culture of just kind of buy, and throw away. And part of the reason I don't really want to have a video where I'm telling you to go buy this shitty thing just so I can get paid. It's it just doesn't feel right. So that was a very long answer, but it's just a way for me to kind of make the videos worth the effort. Because that's the other thing. I don't think people realize how much effort goes into these videos. And how little YouTube pays. I actually ran some numbers on my last 6 on location videos. I'll share these with you because I don't know if the viewers or listeners might find this interesting. But so my last 6 on location videos, I took the averages of how many views I got and what the ad revenue was. Those last 6, I averaged 51,000 views per video, which that ain't Thomas Heaton numbers, but it's still difficult to get that many views. It took me 9 years to build up an audience to get 51,000 views per video. And those videos averaged $298.58 in ad revenue each. So
you're rolling in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know what to do with all this money. So I'm getting like less than $300 per video if it has 51,000 views, and that's running ads at the beginning, middle, and end. So that's a full ad run.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is why YouTubers, and I don't even like calling myself a YouTuber, but this is why YouTubers have to take Squarespace sponsorships, and they got to sell merch, and they got to do all this stuff. So I didn't really want to go any of those routes. So thus the extended play was born. So it's been working well.
I didn't realize, and I'm sure a lot of other people listening to this, and even looking through the comments, like seeing all the negative comments that like were cropping up when you announced this. It's just like you said, the realization that you're not making shit from this. Like that's what, half your audience in terms of views, because you have a little over 100,000 subscribers right now, something like that. So that's
100,000 subs and only 51K video or views, and
that's $300 each. Like that barely pays for my yearly film. Yeah, and I don't shoot it like much at all, but still, like that barely pays for that. So, and that's banking on a huge portion of your subscribers listening or watching that. That's crazy.
And what's fun, and I could even see people making the argument of like, well, you're taking pictures anyway, so you can't really justify the cost of the film, and you're camping anyway. It's fun for you. You can't really justify the cost of the gas. Like, these are all things you'd be paying for anyway. So this is $300 on top of that. But I even looked at like how much time does it take me to make the videos? So not factoring in any physical overhead costs, just what time does it take? And, the actual time in the editing bay, so not including filming it, just editing it, comes out to about an hour per minute of finished video. And that's relatively standard. If you Google, how long does it take to edit a video, it'll say 30 to 60 minutes. So like industry standard is kind of 30 to 60 minutes to get 1 minute of finished video. I'm definitely at the long end of that because, one, I'm not a professional video editor, so I'm not that fast, but also I'm super nitpicky because I agonize over, half a second here, half a second there. But So if I put out a 25-minute video on YouTube, you can assume it took me 25 hours just to edit the video.
Yeesh.
So not film it or anything. So that's 3 work days. That's 3 full work days. And then you could easily tack on another 2 work days just in filming it, planning it, getting the film developed, scanning the film, all that on top of the 3 days spent just editing it. So that's 5 working days just to make a 25-minute video for YouTube. And if I'm getting $298.58 for a full work week, that's $7.46 per hour. Like,
yeah,
California's minimum wage is double that. It's over double that. So, I think people who haven't done any video editing and they're kind of just used to YouTube videos that are free, I could see why they would be irritated, but I think a lot of people just don't realize how much work it is. And, if you're getting Mr. Beast views, it's like, sure, yeah, he gets 22 million views. He's making a 200 grand per video. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that for free. But I just can't justify it for, $300. So anyway, that's my big long rant on why I'm charging people for a 4-hour video.
No, but like you said, that it's something that a lot of people just don't see the back end of that. I think there's this problem where we don't share as creators. We don't often talk about like the negative monetary sides of what we do, and the fact that, we are, like some people say, we are going out and taking photographs regardless whether we share them or not. And we are enjoying the time camping, and we'll get into a little bit more with that from your EP. But
when it's not always enjoyable.
No. It's always enjoyable. It's always a great time.
Always.
But we don't talk about like the actual true costs of everything. Like the fact that I just went on to B&H to order more film for my trip to Acadia next week, and price of film keeps going up. And obviously everybody says like, oh, well then just go shoot digital and all that other bullshit. But it's still the reality of that prices of everything keep going up. And we aren't, if we're posting things to YouTube, if we are trying to get ad revenue or whatever, we're not making like anything from it. Even when you're getting 51,000 people to watch a video. I mean, that's a ton of people. Like from my level right now, I could not imagine having 51,000 people listening to this podcast or reading my writing. And to think that you have all those people, and that's not even 10 cents, that's not even a cent for each person that's viewing you. Like I've listened to other YouTubers, Sean Tucker has talked about this before, and he said that out of all of his views, he obviously does the ad revenue and does sponsorships and such, but a lot of his times, like he'll ask people to donate or to support him, and it's like 3 people, 5 people. Like it's such a small amount of people, despite having a ton of subscribers who apparently want to support your work, but don't want to do it if they have to open up their wallet. So
that's a big next step for people. And like, so I solicit contributions too. That was the first thing I tried to try and make up for such shitty ad revenue. Is I started asking in videos, hey, if you like this, you can buy me a beer. I tried to put it that way, so make it a little easier for people. But and the same thing, it's like some people are super generous, but it is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of people watching. So I'm eternally grateful for the people that are willing to do it, but you just can't assume most people are doing it. And in fact, like my wife makes fun of me because I have some channels that I follow that I watch their stuff all the time. And she's asked me a couple times, like, you ever send a donation to those channels? And I'm like, nope, not once. And I tell her, I'm like, I know I'm a hypocrite. Like, I always plan on doing it and then I don't do it. So I can't really fault people for not wanting to contribute or to buy the thing I'm selling. The vast majority of the time, I'm not going to do that. But, like you said, there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. And most people, I think, just don't think about how much work goes into it. We're so used to free content. We're so inundated with YouTube and Instagram videos that, people seem to be just putting them out for free. So yeah, stuff's free. So you kind of don't really think about, well, it's not going to keep coming if they're not going to make some money off it. So people got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I have an essay that I wrote that's sitting and waiting for somewhere to publish it to, whether it's my site or something else, but pretty much go through this whole thing of just, like you said, we're inundated with free content. I mean, you look at since TV came out, we've not paid really for TV for all the channels that we have. Like,
yeah,
we pay for that through advertisements. And now we are getting to the point where we are instead on the other side of that, we're paying for Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max and all of these other streaming services that we have to really be picky about what we want at this point. We're inundated now with subscription services, and then we go onto YouTube and everything's still free. So it's a weird mix right now where we can only subscribe or contribute to so many different platforms before we run out of money ourselves and can't afford our own bills. Like for me I would love to support other photographers like yourself, like Ben, like Guy Tall, and plenty of others out there through their Patreons or whatever. But for someone like me, who I just graduated from college and am now trying to navigate the rest of my life, like it's difficult for me to contribute in those ways. So I can relate to both sides where as a creator, I want to get contributions from other people. I want to have that and be paid for the work that I'm doing and putting out there, even if it is something that ultimately I'm probably going to do it anyway, but still to have that financial would be nice. And then at the same time, I could see the other side of like, well, look, I've got to pay for Netflix and all my entertainment services. I've got to pay for my film and the rest of my own life too. And to tack on the $30 to $50 for 4 hours of content when you can get for $15 hundreds of hours of content on Netflix is it can be a tough sell.
Yeah, and I thought about that too when I was trying to figure out the pricing for this thing, because I'm like, well, Netflix only costs me this much and I have basically endless entertainment. How can I justify asking someone, this amount for 4 hours? That's it. Not going to get any more. But, Netflix has power in numbers. They got enough people subscribing that the price can come down. And, you kind of have to price it. I have to price mine almost like it's a boutique, bespoke one-off kind of thing, which is going to make it more expensive, even though you're not getting quite as much. And, like you were saying with kind of being sympathetic to both sides of, people who think it should just be free and they'll just watch ads and that's how they, want to get it. I completely get that too, because like how old are you, Cody?
I'm 24.
Okay, 24. So I'm 36, and going from your age to my age, there was a definite transition in my life where I went from money was more valuable than my time when I was younger to now where my time is much more valuable than my money to me. Yeah. And that's just because you start to stare death in the face a little bit as you get older, and like you start to see, I don't have infinite time here. And like watching a 60-second ad is much more aggravating to me at this age than it was like at your age, because you can almost like just hear the clock ticking in your brain when you're doing something that you don't value when you get to an older age. And so I can understand both sides of it, where certain people, and they're not even necessarily young. So sometimes if you're older, same deal. It's just like, your money's worth more to you than your time. And that's not bad or good. I'm not passing any judgment on that. But for some people, their time is worth more than their money, because maybe they got kids they don't see enough, or they got travel plans they want to do. And, it's just different incentives for people. So that's why I kind of wanted to make sure I have a free version on YouTube for people that, they're willing to watch a few ads, no big deal. And they would love to get the content for free that way. But then for people that really just want kind of mainlined entertainment straight into their veins without anything blocking them, and they're willing to pay $30 for that, then they'll have that option. So I definitely sympathize with both sides, just like you were saying.
I do think that's the stronger way of going about things, is having kind of trying to have best of both worlds if you can, with something like YouTube, where you do have your extended play that people like me and clearly some of your subscribers are going to actually want to, like you said, have it streamlined right away and not have to worry about ads. I mean, that's the other thing. Like with my generation, I don't know. It almost feels as if my generation and those coming up are more interested in time and valuing time more than money at this point, which, like, from what you were saying, is kind of like a flip of the script. But that's just my perception on it, that like you look around and you see everyone who they don't want to work for $10, $12 an hour. And it's just as much, I think, of the idea that, well, you can't really survive off of that regardless where you live in this country. But on top of that, like, my time's worth more than $12 an hour. Like, I want to be making more, so I'd much rather go out to nature or hang around at the house and do nothing all day than have that. And it's a weird flip, but I definitely do think it's coming up more. And so I'm curious to see how things are going to change in the next 5 to 10 years as my generation starts to actually get money and like come up into our 30s and are able to support the creators that we actually want to, because personally I have ad block on my laptop. But now, of course, you have YouTube that's like, hey, you have ad block. We're going to bypass that. Like,
it's a constant arms race.
Yeah.
They need to make sure you see the ads and no one wants to see them. So it's just everyone trying to out technology each other.
I was reading something the other day about YouTube, and they are, not only are they trying to bypass the ad blocks that you have. So like, I'll still go onto YouTube and every once in a while I'll click on something and it'll play an ad, but my ad block, it blocks the actual video part of it. So it's just a black screen, but not the sound. So you'll be listening to the ad and you still have the skip button, but so it's like a half and a half. And now even further, YouTube's talking about they're extending or getting rid of 15-second ads or 30-second ads and making them all 60 seconds. And then they want to put ads when you pause a video as well. You're not making enough money. Like, that's just gonna irritate people even more. And the biggest issue is the fact that YouTube is such a monopoly or conglomerate organization that it's like, where else am I gonna do it? Yeah. So.
I know, it's weird, man. Big corporations like that, I mean, they can kind of do whatever they want once they get to that level. Plus people, it's like it's like boiling a frog. Like, you just slowly get people more used to just 15 seconds ads, and you can skip them, no big deal. And then people get used to that, and it's like, oh, we're going to be 30 seconds now, and we'll let you skip some of them. And then they kind of just keep slowly increasing it until you realize, like, oh, I'm watching more ads on this 7-minute YouTube video than I used to watch on TV back when it was like, you couldn't skip past. But I think that's the only way it can go. I mean, they just got to keep increasing profits. So,
I mean, I'll click on the stupid little like 10, 15, 30-second videos. Yeah. And I'll be watching more ads than I will video. Yeah. It's a 30-second video that has 3 minutes of ads to it. I'm like, what is going on? And it's, of course, at that point, it's always unskippable too. So I'm like, all right, well, this just isn't worth it.
My favorite is when I go to watch a movie trailer and there's ads before the movie trailer. It's like, I'm coming to watch an ad.
Yeah, exactly.
For the movie. Like, do I need to watch ads to watch an ad? This is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's going. But going back into our conversation a bit, we had mentioned about the joys of camping, and something that Ben and I have talked about repeatedly is what he calls the first day funk. And I thought that it was very, I definitely saw parallels when watching through your EP and seeing as to how you react for first days and going throughout the extended trips. Yeah. And first of all, as I said in email, I commend you for sharing that so openly, because as someone who speaks very openly about mental health and who believes very firmly in sharing our struggles, especially as creators, because through this sharing, we are able to come together and relate better and empathize more with one another. It's a conversation that I think we need to have. It's something that you always hear about, like the starving artist and the artist, like most artists having some kind of mental health issue, which isn't always the case, but you hear about it, but then you don't really talk about how to amend it, or you don't have like a positive conversation about it. It's always, oh, well, if you want to be an artist, you have to be fucked up in the head. Like,
yeah, there's that cliche of the tortured artist, you know?
Exactly.
And oddly, that's given me some bit of solace in dealing with the kind of shit I deal with on that. Because it's like, oh, well, maybe there is something to that. Maybe that's a cliche for a reason. Maybe there has to be some degree of struggle to create something really, really worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. Maybe it's just a cliche and there's not any truth to it. But I've been getting emails from people who signed up for this EP, you know, telling me how much they enjoy it. But one of the ones that keeps coming up is people saying how much they can relate to the difficulties I was going through with the first night I was there. And for anyone who obviously hasn't seen the EP, it was three night camping, and the first night was just a little rough mentally. So it's just exhaustion and not much sleep, and things kind of all going to shit. And then the self-imposed pressure of wanting to make sure I took good pictures and made good video all just kind of led up to it being a bit too much for me. So that's common for me personally. That's why I dubbed it the crushing regret of night one. Every time I go out, I regret it. Like as soon as nightfall starts to set in. And the fact that it's so tightly correlated with nightfall just has made me realize it's a very reptilian kind of caveman reaction in me, largely. Darkness falls and there's that part of your brain that hasn't fully evolved yet that just kind of like, yeah, this is danger time.
Yeah.
This is when, you know, people freeze to death. This is when animals come out. This is when you become prey. And I think that part of my brain can really take over if I'm tired, because it's just like I made a joke about it on the extended play, but I really think like anxiety for me is a readily available fuel source. It's just always there. It's plentiful. It's cheap. It burns hot. So if I don't have enough food in me, if I don't have enough sleep in me, and those energy sources are depleted, my brain's just like, oh, yeah, we got a whole shitload of anxiety here we can tap into that's just been building up over the past many months. And it's like, things you haven't been addressing, things you haven't really been talking about. So yeah, that's been piling up. No, we're good. We got a ton of energy right here. So it just pours all this anxiety on top of whatever little bit of anxiety I might be feeling at that moment. And it's like, oh, it's not just that the pictures aren't as good as you hope. Everyone's going to figure out that you're a hack. The video sucks. You're not going to be able to do the next one. That means you're not going to be able to figure out your next revenue stream. That means you're going to start running out of money, bud. So you better, start looking at different career. Like it just piles up and it's just feeding on that energy. And it's giving me all this energy. And the weird thing that happened on that trip is I was very sleep deprived and I was very road weary, but I never yawned. I didn't feel like I needed to sit down. I didn't feel like I needed to stop. I had all this energy, but I really think it was just anxiety was fueling me. I just kind of, I had enough, bad thoughts going through my head to just kind of distract me from any sort of exhaustion. So I didn't feel exhausted, but I definitely was. And something I deal with every time I go camping. So maybe it'll never go away.
Yeah, I don't go camping near as often as I would like to. And I don't think I've ever experienced anything to quite that same extent, but I definitely can sympathize with that feeling of like, I remember going back to elementary school when I would go over to friends' houses. And I even talked to my girlfriend about this after I had watched the EP, and you were fine throughout the day. And then you get to that nighttime and it's like, I'm at a place where I know one or two other people and a bunch of other people that I don't know. Or even if it's just you and your best friend sleeping over and you're just in an unfamiliar place, and yeah, reptilian brain just takes over and is like, this is unsafe, even if though you're around someone that you should trust, and I want to get out of here. And there have been a number of times where I've called in like middle of the night, hey mom, come pick me up because I can't do this kind of deal. And same. I don't think that's ever necessarily come over with camping, primarily because of the fact that I'm like going to Acadia next week. I'm 13 hours away from home, 12 hours away from home. That's really difficult to pack everything back up, cancel everything over that first night, and drive back home. I'm like, I don't have a choice here. So I have to force myself into this quieting down my brain and realizing, no, a tree is most likely not going to fall over and crush us in the middle of the night, and all the other like stupid little anxiety ridden thoughts that come around. Like,
yeah.
And so, I think
I think that's actually a good approach, by the way, is forcing yourself into a situation where you don't have an out. You know, you just kind of, and that was kind of similar to me with the Arizona thing, because it was far enough drive. I wasn't going to just turn around and go home, but also I had committed to making these videos.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I went home, those were going to be scrapped. So, that wasn't an option to me at all. But, it's really interesting to hear from you and other people, because it was a little worrisome sharing that stuff in the video.
Oh man,
because,
it's tough. It's so tough.
You feel weak doing it. It's vulnerability, and like, I don't know about you, but when I'm out there having one of those like little micro mental breakdowns, I'm just thinking like, well, fucking like Jocko Willink wouldn't be having this problem. Like, we kind of live in this culture where, like, I don't know, we've made a lot of progress, but it's still kind of difficult for dudes to admit, like, yeah, dude, I'm just fucking having a hard time right now. You know, it's like, because you start thinking, well, I'm not like going through boot camp right now. This isn't that big a deal. I'm camping. I'm supposed to be having fun. So you start to kind of invalidate your own feelings about it, because you think like logically, well, the people deal with much worse. You know, I even start thinking like, what if I was in Ukraine right now? Like, I'm having to fight in a war in 2023, but me, Nick Carver, is like, having to sleep in the back of my 4Runner is a bit too much for me. Like, I can't. You just start to feel so stupid about it. But, you know, I think it probably is good to acknowledge it and not pass judgment on it when it's happening, and try and just, you know, you can't really pass judgment on those kind of things. It's hard to know what gets people to rise to the occasion versus cave in. Maybe if I was in the trenches, I wouldn't feel this upset. Maybe there's some weird combination of what I'm dealing with in that moment. The fact that there is an easy out or something makes it harder. I don't know, but it's hard to admit that sometimes that you're struggling, especially as guys, especially as men. Like, we are conditioned, and even like, I think my generation, the younger side of my generation and those coming up, are a little bit better off than what I was, but it's still not nearly as it should be. I mean, yesterday I went to my cousin's house to play board games. He's big into board games. We would get together every other month or so to play a couple for the night. And going over there, I'm like faced with anxiety. I'm literally like getting all of my stuff together to go over, just to spend 5 hours, 6 hours over there, and driving over, dealing with anxiety. I'm like, dude, you're driving over there to play board games, to eat some food, and to just chill for the night with your cousin. Like, you're acting like you're going up and meeting with a stranger or some shit. Like, chill. Yeah. But this entire time, and even I get there, everything's good. I'm good. I go to leave, and I'm coming back home, and my anxiety acts up. And I'm like, I'm driving home at night, going to my house where you had wanted to be 6 hours ago. Yeah. I'm like, dude, it is insane how all that stuff acts up. But like you said, like, I think about this, I have fits of this, and my anxiety has been getting worse over the past few months for whatever reasons. But it's one of those deals of, like you said, you go and you think, well, what about the people over in Ukraine? What about X, Y, or Z individual? Like, they're doing so much more, and their lives are more at risk than me playing board games for the night or going out camping. But like, at the same time, we think of this, and it's just detrimental because it makes it even worse. Because now you're having an anxiety attack, or you're dealing with depression, and you're thinking, well, this individual isn't going to be like this, or it shouldn't be acting like this. But in reality, we also don't know. Like, because that conversation isn't necessarily had as pervasively as it should be, it's tough to be able to actually say that, oh, well, Nick Carver isn't dealing with this to play board games, but like, Well, I think there's definitely, and I've experienced this multiple times in my life, but I didn't really know what was happening until like my late 20s. But there's a definite thing that can happen where if you're not dealing with something that should be dealt with, it will come out. Mm-hmm. especially when you least want it to, and very much when your mind is finally quieted for the first time in a while. So like driving over to your cousin's house or something, for me, that would be a time when my mind is maybe finally quiet.
Yeah.
Because all I can do is focus on driving. And that's when the thing I haven't been dealing with, the shit I've been, pretending is not a big deal, or just kind of muscling through and not really talking about it or not really addressing it, that's when it starts to really come up. So I kind of wonder sometimes with these camping trips, it's like the first night I'm out there, maybe that's just the first time where I'm like not scrolling Instagram and not thinking about what I need to do tomorrow, and not, stressing about this and stressing about that and what's broken on the house this week and what do I need to fix. And like, maybe that's just the first time where I'm not so distracted that all my anxiety I haven't been addressing actually starts to well up, and then it starts to take over.
Yeah.
Because I've finally opened the door for it, but it's like in just day-to-day life, I'm so caught up with, okay, this is what I got to do today. This is what needs to get done. This is how I'm going to be making money next week. This needs to get fixed on the house. That all the shit I'm not dealing with mentally doesn't really have an opportunity to take control of my brain, because I'm so distracted with everything I got to do just in the daily course of life. But it's like, as soon as you quiet your brain, all that stuff can really start to come in.
Yeah.
At least it can for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely something that a lot of people deal with when it's the quiet moments that we fear the most when dealing with anxiety and mental health. And I think that's also why we are so easily trapped in by the constant stream of content. I mean, you think about it, like,
yeah,
as bad as doom scrolling is for our mental health, and at least it really definitely was for mine, which is why I got off of social media a couple years ago. But we go through these doom scrolling times and try to bring in as much content into our mind to keep our minds busy, so that way we don't have to deal with those quiet moments of boredom where we have to actually deal with the thoughts that are so heavily flooding our brains.
Yeah.
Camping definitely seems to be one of those times where, like, especially if you're in a place where you don't have service or you can't so easily get away through social media or through other means. So it's like, yeah, I can definitely see that having a strong correlation there.
And being alone in that moment. Because like, if I go camping with just one other person, I don't have any of these problems.
I think that's what helps me a lot too, is I go camping all the time with my girlfriend. Like, every camping trip is with her. So it's like, even if we're both dealing with anxiety, like, just being close to one another and having kind of like that miniature tribe, so to speak, where our reptilian brain, like you were saying earlier, just kind of, oh, well, we were with someone, so we're safe, we're good. This person will have our back if something happens, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, like you said, I think it's a conversation that needs to happen more openly. It's why I'm writing about in a like kind of cross memoir style on my website and throughout all of the writings that I do, trying to talk more about it on the podcast here and open up that conversation, because we all know that photography, especially when in the like nature landscape realm, is inundated with primarily men, which comes with its major downsides because we don't get voices from the other side. I think that also is kind of a strong reason as to why we deal so strongly with mental health and why we have those stigmas of the tortured artist, because of the fact that it's been men for the most part, and we are terrible about talking about our emotions, and it's rough. But
I think men are not as good at talking about it for sure, but just from having been with my wife for 12 years now, not married the whole time, but been 12 years, definitely, like, I know for me and from a lot of guys I've talked to, it takes me a long time to figure out what's wrong when I'm having a problem. Mm-hmm. Like, I've noticed it seems like women they don't have as much difficulty with that. Like, maybe they're more in touch with their emotions and they kind of know right away what's actually upsetting them. But I usually have to take a few passes on my own thoughts before I figure out, oh, this is actually the problem. It's hard to articulate a lot of the times why I'm feeling a certain way. And I think guys might have a little bit tougher time with that. So that adds a little bit of difficulty and complexity on top of it. Because even if you do want to talk about it, or even if it is with people who are open to it, it's like, might take you a while to even formulate what the hell's going on. Other than just, I feel bad right now. And like that's the best you can come up with in the moment. But it takes a while to articulate it. So I think that that's another challenge guys have to deal
Yeah,
with.
and I think that plays very heavily into the fact that we didn't grow up with good role models speaking about that and like telling us how to deal with our emotions. It's always been like, oh, man up, or like be a man. It's always like the biggest thing that you're told as a male kid. Whereas with daughters, it's like, oh, it's almost taken for granted that like they're going to be more sensitive, they're going to cry more, they're going to have more emotions. So trying to split that difference and show that girls are always told to different ways to cope with their emotions, and the guys are just told to suck it up, deal with it, and get on with your life. Like show your anger through being productive and building something. Whereas the girls, it's totally different. And that's something that unfortunately we can't do a whole lot to control unless we have kids of our own. And even then, dealing with it, it's a societal issue to ultimately change things. But yeah, I find that same thing of my girlfriend will ask me what's wrong. I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm off. I'm mentally off. And she has to keep broaching that subject and pushing me till I'm finally like able to figure out, oh, it's this that's bothering me today. Yeah,
well, it only took me until my 30s to realize it's okay to just say like, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
But something's wrong. So, and luckily my wife is very okay with that now. But yeah, as I've had to learn to do that, like, I don't know, I'm just pissed. You didn't do anything. No one did anything. I'm just off right now. Yeah. And it'll resolve itself. But like, I don't want to talk about it because there's nothing to talk about. I don't know what to talk about because I don't know what's wrong. But that can be a weird thing to people, I'm sure, who are more in touch with articulating their difficulties. And I think it's tough with guys too, because I do really value having strength and fostering strength and working on your own ability to get through those moments and to not let those emotions dictate too much of your life. So I am always trying to walk that line of being open and, acknowledging difficulties and difficult emotions, but also like not wringing your hands about something that is not actually a problem, like being strong and not, especially when you got someone else that can maybe kind of spin out if you start spinning out, like just, I guess, picking your battles on what emotions you're going to let be a big problem. I've tried to be, like even this camping stuff, I try and separate between, okay, you're just tired. You're just a little bit freaked out because you're alone in the desert versus this is an actual problem that needs to be addressed. Yeah. Like you're not being productive enough and that's why you're feeling depressed or, because it is, I've definitely been able to make myself spin out if I let myself dwell too much on something that, maybe you just need to go for a walk. Maybe you just need to exercise or something and it won't seem like as big of a deal, but instead I'm just going to sit there and like think about it and really try and figure it out mentally. It might be better sometimes to just, treat it like a pet or something like, okay, you don't have enough food in your system. You're not exercising enough. Like if my dog doesn't play enough, he becomes a nightmare. Yeah. So it's like, why would I assume I'm any different? Like maybe I'm an animal just like him, a much more evolved animal, but maybe you just need to give yourself something for 15 minutes that'll get your mind off it and then you'll be fine. Versus, kind of picking it apart too much. But it's a hard line to walk. It's hard to know what emotions and what things you're feeling are really actual problems that need to be addressed versus, nah, man, you just need to get out and work with your hands for the day. You'll feel right as rain tomorrow. Like, just kind of giving you your basic needs instead of, overblowing something that maybe doesn't need to be. Yeah. But it's complex stuff. So it's complex navigating it sometimes.
Definitely is. I mean, I was thinking more about productivity this past few weeks and it was funny. It was talking to my girlfriend because for the past month or so, I've been writing a weekly essay, article, whatever, on various topics and trying to navigate that realm of the side of writing business, so to speak. And the one that I wrote about yesterday was feigned productivity and this idea that we go onto YouTube to watch a educational video and we get sucked into YouTube for 3 hours, or we think that we're going to be productive watching this 10-minute video and when in reality we already had the information from it that we didn't need, or we sit at our desk and we know what we need to get done, but we sit there and instead we decide to clean or organize our desk. Or like yesterday, I know that I'm supposed to be writing these articles every week. I know that every Tuesday I want to publish one. Yet for some reason I get into this mindset of I've always been a big procrastinator, so I'll procrastinate. Yesterday at like 8:30 in the morning when I woke up, I still didn't have an article written to be published. So I'm like, okay, I know that I need to get this done before I go over to my cousin's. I know that that's like the primary thing that needs to be completed. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, I'll get started at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock comes by, I'm like, oh, I look over at my, one of the plants that I have, a ponytail palm. I'm like, oh, the fronds on there are kind of getting brown for some of them. I should probably trim that. So I go and I trim those. I'm like, all right, I seriously need to sit down and get this done. I go over to my desk, I grab my AirPods. I'm like, oh, my AirPods case is a little dirty. I'm going to grab a Q-tip real quick and clean these because otherwise they won't charge right. And then I don't want them to die in like the middle of a run or something. So I clean those. I'm like, oh, my cup is empty. I should get more water with some ice. And finally I sit down and I'm like, it took so much willpower for me to actually sit down. I had to turn on Do Not Disturb on my computer and turn off the Wi-Fi and all that other stuff to finally sit down and to do something. And I was talking to my girlfriend about this and she's like, you probably have ADD or like ADHD or some kind of...
Yeah, I didn't want to say it. Sounds like
ADD. We were sitting down and she was on the phone with me as I was driving home last night. And I was explaining this to her and she's like, yeah, you definitely have some kind of like ADD, ADHD. I'm like, I know how to relatively control it, but it was just a funny thing about that productivity thing of like, I was reading James Clear's Atomic Habits. In it, he was mentioning about like the having your spaces designated for certain things. So something with productivity I'm trying with that is this idea of my desk, I can only do writing and photography stuff, or like school if I get a job for teaching. So it has to be very specific things that I can do at my desk, because otherwise I sit at my desk all day. And it just creates that environment where I wake up, I sit at my desk, I watch YouTube, I eat, I do everything there.
Yeah.
And so creating those different spaces is definitely needed. But at the same time, getting into that productivity of like always feeling like you need to be productive, it can be great for helping with your mental health. And I find that the busier that I am, the more active that I am throughout the day and moving around and feel like I'm actually doing something, the better that I feel versus sitting around at the couch watching TV or playing video games all day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm just watching YouTube videos and like in that feigned productivity mindset, it's just as bad as it would be if I wasn't doing anything at all.
Yeah. I know a couple people that are similar to you. I'm lucky. I've never been a procrastinator. Like even in school, I would come home and as soon as I got home, I'd do my homework. I was never one of those people that needed to be told, because I have this anxiety where if something is unfinished, it really gnaws away at me. And that's led to me mostly being very productive. It can lead to a lot of stress because it's when you're working on a long project, just by its nature, it's going to be unfinished for a long time. So it can be stressful while it's being finished. But having to come up with hacks and stuff, to like get yourself to work is that could be challenging, I'm sure, because it's like something needs to get done, and you're working, you're doing a lot of stuff, but it's all just not productive. Like I see that with people talking. I may even be doing this right now, but it's a lot of talking without saying anything.
Yeah.
And you'll see people doing things without actually doing anything. Some people may know I shoot office buildings as kind of my day job. I go into these offices, and a lot of these hip modern offices, they'll have ping pong table, pool table, a bar. They got like all these things. I'm like, the hell are you guys doing all day? Like, don't you have to... How many distractions are here? Do you really need to be putting in 40 hours a week here if you got all these activities to do and you're still able to do your job? But yeah, there's no shortage of distractions these days. I can get sucked into the Instagram death scroll pretty violently.
It reminds me of another book that I had finished up reading, Deep Work by Cal Newport. And he pretty much talks about trying to get our focus back when we're trying to do work. And like these offices that's why so many people are going more towards a like 4-day work week rather. Like you said, you're going to these places and like open space offices and all these like board meetings that you have, but also the ping pong tables and places to hang out. It's like am I going to work or am I going to socialize? Because I mean, most places that I've gone to that I've worked at, it's a place to socialize more than it is a place to actually get work done for most of the shift. Like you're doing more talking with other people than you are anything else.
Yeah. My feeling is always like, wouldn't you rather quit work 2 hours early and go home? But I guess I'm such a homebody. I'm just like, oh man, I'd rather just go home. Can we get this done in like by 3 o'clock and then we'll all peace out? Or do we have to like hang out and talk to each other pretending like we're getting work done when we're actually just socializing? It's very weird. But I wouldn't survive 2 minutes in a corporate environment for a lot of reasons. So I'm too combative. I'd get fired on day one probably.
Yeah. It's going to be weird for me going from, because the past 3 years, really, it's been nothing but school for me. And a lot of that's been online after COVID. And it now going into like a classroom, even a student teaching the past few months, it's just such a weird thing of like actually going to work and not sitting at home and navigating that space. So it's going to be interesting how that changes.
COVID's changed a lot, hasn't it?
One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, kind of going away from the mental health side of things, a lot of your photography is combining the human element with nature. And you talked about how your main day job is photographing office buildings that are filled with ping pong tables. I'm just kind of curious more about why you photograph the things that you photograph, because I've kind of been in a transitory position where I'm finding myself more interested in the liminal spaces and the human element side of things, not necessarily going out to shoot abandoned buildings so much as finding abandoned structures or old, long forgotten structures in the middle of the woods, that kind of thing. I even have a series going right now that I've been slowly working on that is Coke machines compared to your EP that you had shown a couple of them. So I was just curious why you go after the human element, like, because you have that mix of abandoned buildings, but also nature.
Yeah, I very much used to be like, I didn't want any signs of human touch on anything.
Yeah,
I was very kind
the same way.
Yeah, classic landscape, just make it look as much like I was out in the middle of nowhere as possible. And eventually got burned out on that. Part of it was, I don't know, you start to realize that's bullshit most of the time. Like you see pictures from Horseshoe Bend or some arch in Utah, and it's like the picture looks like you're in complete solitude, but then you look at any behind the scenes photo, like one that was taken just 10 feet further back, and you're like one of 30 photographers lined up in that same spot taking that same photo.
Ben and I had talked about this in one of our earliest episodes, and just how far away from the road you actually are when you're taking a lot of photographs that look like they're in complete wilderness. I mean, he mentioned one photographs that he has that he was like, I just pulled off the side of the road and captured it. Yeah. And it's like, it looks like you're in the middle of backpacking in Utah in the middle of the desert. Yeah. But in reality, it's like, no, just this is something that you pass by on the way to another destination.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the magic of photography is you're choosing what to show people. I mean, there's no problem with that. But I think as I kept pursuing the nature stuff in that fashion, I don't know, it just became abundantly clear to me that you're not really like showing the truth of anything with this. And I used to always say that like my purpose for taking photos was to share the beauty of nature with the world so that they can also appreciate it. And I understand that purpose, but I had to eventually admit to myself, if you want to protect nature, the best thing you can do for it is not share these locations with anybody and not make people admire them. Basically, just pretend they don't exist. Because the more you show it to people, the more people want to go to it. And the more people want to go to it, the more they destroy it. I mean, this is nothing new. And this is a problem with Joshua Tree National Park and closing down trails and all this kind of stuff. So I couldn't really hide behind that purpose anymore. Of, I'm taking pictures of nature because I love nature and I want to share it with people. Because I felt, you're actually going to be hurting nature if you do that. So you shouldn't do that. And so I was going through a slump for quite a while where I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to photograph because I'd only really done landscapes. But then I started shooting kind of just local buildings in Orange County just as something to do. And it's something nearby, and like shooting buildings at dusk. It's always kind of rewarding because it just almost always looks good. And then it kind of I guess, started to evolve on its own of, I now really enjoy showing the impact of humans on their environment. It's always difficult to describe, and this is why I take photos, because I'm not good at describing it. But like almost like when you see in, I think, Australia and Africa and stuff, you see termite mounds that are insane, and like these little tiny bugs are creating these vast structures, not really knowing what they're doing in that sense. They're just kind of one foot in front of the other doing what they've been programmed to do. And the result is this crazy ornate structure out in the wilderness that we find interesting. And I kind of started to view stores and street scenes and stuff around here through that same lens, where I was kind of like, oh, look at this donut shop. Like, look how the sign is made, and look at all the promos in the window, and you can see all these little things. Oh, they patched the paint over there, and I started to appreciate these scenes as almost like this is humans going about their business, not really thinking about the larger plan they're on. Like, they're kind of just, beavers build dams without knowing what they're doing, really. They're just kind of programmed to build dams. Like, there was a video going around for a while. This beaver was in like I know it sounds insane what I'm talking about, but I swear it'll come together. There was this video going around of this beaver at this like rehab center, and it was inside. It was in like a veterinary office, and it kept bringing all these toys and piling them up in front of a door, like it was trying to build a dam. And it's it was just funny, because it's like, well, the beaver he's not trying to stop water. He's just programmed to pile things up. Like, I'm just going to pile this stuff up here for some reason. That makes me feel good. And then the result is you get like dams out in the wilderness with a big pond and all this, ecology around it and all this kind of stuff that sprouts out of this one weird built-in urge to this beaver. And I feel like humans are really no different. Like, we just have these things built into us to build things a certain way. We like certain straight angles, and we put lettering a certain way, and we do all this kind of stuff on like say a local business. And then years pass and you look at it, and it's got this interesting mosaic of evidence of what humans have done over these many, many years. And it's kind of telling a story of time passing with humans in this environment. And you can almost appreciate it. Like, you can look at it and say, oh, that's ugly, because a lot of what humans do is ugly. And when the consumerist side of it and the advertising and all that stuff, I don't like. It's ugly. But the beautiful side of it is just almost like watching humans as an anthropologist and kind of examining what they're doing and the symbols they're using and the decisions they make on where to place things and what to advertise to people and what, repairing things over the years and all that mosaic. It's almost like modern archaeology. I think I've made that reference in my videos before, but, we look at Egyptian ruins and all this kind of stuff. We try to get a sense of what they were like and what their lives were like and what their day-to-day life was like. A modern, like, American liquor store, to me, is no different. It's telling the story of how our society operates right now. It's telling the story of how humans think right now, what our values are, for sure. And I kind of started seeing the beauty in these things that previously to me were just ugly. Because I grew up here in Orange County. I've been here forever, and it used to all just be ugly. It's just concrete jungle. It's power lines and shitty little businesses and shitty little buildings, if you want to look at it that way. But eventually I kind of started to see the beauty of it. All these different people coming together and living their separate lives. And that ends up in this mosaic of buildings and mosaic of old trees and new landscaping and old buildings and remodeled buildings and advertisements, and all this stuff is coming together to create this thing that is uniquely Orange County or uniquely America or uniquely California, whatever it is. And I kind of started to be able to appreciate that and not view it as simply ugly. It can be ugly, but there can also be beauty in it if you're looking at the human side of it and kind of imagining the stories of the people that have created all these things. Again, this is why I take pictures, because that was a terrible word salad of me trying to explain why I take the pictures I take. But there you have it.
No, but I think that's eye-opening though into obviously your process of it, but also into like I think a lot of us when we get into nature and landscape photography, we go into it like you said because we want to share the beauty of the world as we see it. And as like when we first getting into it, we think that that's like the greatest statement we could possibly make. We think that's like profound,
Yes.
that we want to share the beauty as we see it. And that's like mind blowing. But then you go and you're like, you evolve as a photographer and you get into what you would define as a rambly statement like that. But I think that it's so much more than that because it's showing the evolution and of our thought process behind things. I mean, I was the same way. I got into nature and landscape photography and photography as a whole because at the time I was dealing or just starting to deal with my mental health issues, depression and anxiety, and kind of realizing that I needed a creative outlet. I needed some way to express myself, so to speak. And it has since evolved into black and white landscape photography. And then more so now into like, now as I'm going more towards the human element of things and seeing the intersection between humanity and nature, not so much in your light of showing the commentary of humanity as a whole, as a subject, but more of showing our intersection and showing how not only is nature going to take back over and when we are long gone, and not only is it always going to be around and always outlast us, but also to a certain degree kind of learning that we can live in conjunction with it and should live in conjunction with it like we once did, and trying to navigate how to formulate that message and or follow along that new path it's fascinating how we go along and we start to learn more about what we actually want to do with our photography and how that changes. I mean, it's like any other kind of change. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about it like for the past, what is it now? About 6 years, I've been doing black and white landscape photography. And like, I always thought that this is what I'm going to be known for, is my black and white photographs of intimate nature. And then I start to be pulled towards these liminal spaces that I find. And that's a cool chimney. Or, oh, look how these vines grow on this old abandoned pizza hut. And even going so far as like the inspired by Chuck Kimmerly's work with the bones of animals and the detritus around that, and showing like the beauty and like just the reality of life through that. And just thinking like, this isn't the kind of stuff that everyone is going to go for and hang up on their walls. But at the same time, this is the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in, at least right now. Yeah. And is that going to change in a couple of years? Yeah, probably, as I evolve as an artist, as I grow as an individual. But at that same time, like, I've got to do what's true to me.
Yeah, and it's difficult to trust yourself and trust the process, because there's always the second guessing that happens when you have an urge to do something, you know, whether it's shoot a certain type of picture, you're going to start thinking 20 feet ahead and, oh, well, what's the purpose of this? And is anyone going to like this? Does it fit into my larger portfolio and everything? In the course of pursuing your style, I think the best thing you can do, but also probably the most difficult, is to just trust the process and trust the journey. I hate to even call it a journey. That makes it sound so hippy. It's not like a journey, man. It's just like, but
there's a video or a podcast episode I was listening to, an interview with, I forget who was being interviewed, but it's a real big screenwriter being interviewed by Rich Roll, and he hated the word journey. It just reminds me of that. He said that it was such a California word of this journey that you're on, and you're on a journey.
There's all this like precious vocabulary that comes up on this type of stuff, because it's kind of hard to talk about, so you end up saying stupid things like, oh, it touches your soul, and you know, if it's a spiritual journey and everything. It's not that hippy dippy, but it is like it's a process. I guess that's probably a better word. Like just kind of trusting the process and the sequence of events that have to happen for you to get to the next step. And that's really hard to trust, because you can't see the future, and you're essentially trusting a process that you're completely not in control of. Like just shooting buildings and stuff, for me, I resisted it for a while, because I just thought, no one's going to care about these photos. Well, why would anyone want a picture of a donut shop or a liquor store or something like that? And I wasn't trusting the process, and I wasn't trusting that I should just take the next step, which is I want to shoot that thing. I'll go shoot that thing. And, damn whatever consequences result. If no one likes it, who cares? If everyone likes it, okay. Just take the next picture that you want to take. And that's, for me, proved to be the most effective way to, feel really good about my photography. So actually be proud of it, but also to actually take that next step in the evolution of wherever my work is going, is to kind of just, put your hands up and let the ride take you. Like, you're kind of on a ride. There's a lot of factors that you're not in control of that are going to dictate what you like taking pictures of and what you end up taking pictures of next year versus this year. And just kind of letting the ride happen and not trying to resist it too much, not trying to fight it too much, seems to work out a lot better, at least for me. So yeah, I guess trusting that spiritual journey that you're going on and just like, so stuff is so hard to talk about because it's so weird and it's so intangible, but best I've been able to articulate it.
The number of times that I have passed by some kind of structure or something regardless and been driving by and I'm like, look over, I'm like, that would make a nice photograph. And for some stupid reason, I don't stop and actually photograph it. Yeah. And then I regret it later. Like if I don't turn around and go and actually just take that photograph, I regret it later. But during that time that I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that would make a nice photograph for someone else to take.
Yeah.
Because my audience or whoever is looking at my photographs isn't going to like it. But even though in reality, I more than likely would have liked it, or at least been happy to have tried to make it into something that I would have liked.
Yeah, exactly. Worst case scenario is you would have been happy you found out that you didn't like it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can definitely talk yourself out of pictures. I do that less than I used to, but still a problem. You start talking yourself out of why this photo's not going to be worth taking. But I don't think I've ever regretted taking a photo. I've been disappointed with the photo, but I don't think I've ever said, I wish I didn't take the time to take that photo. That was a waste.
I think the only time that I had anything similar to that was when I first went to Acadia in 2021. I exposed 43 sheets of film or so, something like that, over about a week's time. And I kept 3 of those photographs. And it was just one of those deals of like, I went to this new place. I'd never been there before.
Yeah.
And so I had the camera out almost all the time. And it's not so much that I regret having done it because it taught me a lot and helped me on consecutive trips, but it's just one of those things of like, 40 photographs to keep 3. Like, of course, those listening who shoot digital are like, oh yeah, that's nothing. That's my single day. Like, but shooting film, I mean, you do the math on that and you're like, after developing at home and everything like that, it's like $200-$300 that you just spent for 3 photographs. And that goes right back to our conversation in the beginning of like the reality of the cost of this stuff. It's
like maybe I could have slowed down and pick and choose my shots a little more carefully.
Yeah, exactly. So going into next week when I go back up there, it's at least now I'm hoping I won't have that first year of everyth's an explosion and first time visiting. I'm hoping that this time it'll be like how it normally is, being more contemplative and thinking why this calls out to me and if this will actually make a good photograph and not just photographing it because it's there and it's new and it might be exciting. But
well, I'm sure you got it out of your system on the first time.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't have nearly as much film going up with me this time.
That's a good way to limit it.
Yeah. I have whatever's left in this box of 100 that I bought last April and 25 sheets sitting in the freezer.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.